French President Emmanuel Macron has arrived in Benin for talks with his counterpart Patrice Talon. Macron's on a tour of Cameroon, Benin and Guinea Bissau to strengthen political and security ties with countries in West and Central Africa. France says it aims to respond positively to requests for help to combat Islamist militants. Benin has seen increasing terror attacks as violence spreads south from the Sahel countries. Macron will end his first African tour since his re-election in Guinea-Bissau. Well, earlier, Macron said archives on French colonial rule in Cameroon will be fully opened. He says he hopes that will shed light on what he called the period's painful moments. Tens of thousands of people were killed by the French army before Cameroon gained independence in 1960. France says providing access to the archives will allow historians to investigate the past and establish responsibility.
C'est pourquoi ce que je souhaite, c'est que nous puissions avoir et lancer ensemble un travail conjoint d'historiens camerounais et français qui pourront ainsi avoir accès à la totalité de nos archives. Je prends ici l'engagement solennel d'ouvrir nos archives en totalité à ce groupe d'historiens conjoints qui nous permettront d'éclairer ce passé.
At least 15 people have been killed as anti-United Nations protests have flared up in the eastern DRC. The protests have been spurred by complaints that the UN mission known as MONUSCO has failed to protect civilians against militia violence, which has raged for years. In response to the violence, the United Nations released a statement saying the situation is volatile and reinforcements are being mobilized and that reaction forces are on high alert. They also say that people have been told to use maximum restraint and only fire warning shots when United Nations personnel or property are under attack. Dr. Yvan Yenda Ilunga is Professor of Political Science and International Relations, also Deputy Director of the Joint Civil Military Interaction Research and Education Network. Professor, good afternoon to you. What led to these protests? Why are people in that area so angry with the United Nations?
Good afternoon, dear Stephen, and thank you for having me. This question is very important. I think the reason for this ongoing violence started a while ago, where many people within the DRC felt that the UN, through MONUSCO, was very unsuccessful in addressing issues of insecurity, especially in the East. So this is an expression of a mounting frustration which has been in the DRC for so long. Yeah.
Is it just frustration at a failure by the United Nations, people who have promised to protect civilians, or are there groups using this against the United Nations? Are they deliberately attacking the United Nations? Let me put it like that.
Yeah, definitely. There are some opportunists who are taking advantage of this. But again, yes, it is a failure by the United Nations. But we also have to say the United Nations is in the DRC by the invitation of the DRC government. So it's very unfair, from my understanding, to put all the responsibility of the UN and waiving those responsibilities on the DRC government, who actually is supposed to take the leadership on these issues of providing security and stability in the East as well as other parts of the country. But of course, some politicians and some actors within the DRC and outside are taking advantage of the situation.
You say outside. Do we go just across the border? Do we look at Rwanda? I mean, there's several dynamics at play here. You've got the DRC central government, the United Nations. You've got civilians in the middle of it all. You've got perhaps the Rwandan government. I'm sure they'll deny it. And if I've understood my geography correctly, also the M23 movement.
Yeah, well, I will not probably list Rwanda or any other countries, but of course we have seen that Rwanda has been, for instance, arguing over the years that the MONUSCO was an issue. So basically this may strengthen the position when it comes to the presence of MONUSCO in the DRC. And of course M23 will definitely celebrate because MONUSCO has been operating in support to the FRDC. So, but I think we have to go beyond these borders. In fact, what has been happening through the transition plan that MONUSCO and the DRC developed, they highlighted key issues such as the management of natural resources. And this, of course, is not only benefiting the DRC or entities within the region. So it's a very big network, which I think discrediting MONUSCO would be of great advantage to those who have been benefiting from this channel of illicit trade in the East. But unfortunately, for me, it looks like the DRC civilians are just still the victims on both sides, victims of violence and also somehow victims of manipulations which may be growing and benefiting other actors.
Very complex issue, of course, in that area of the DRC. Dr. Yvan Yenda Ilunga, Professor rather, thank you very much indeed. I really do appreciate the time.